G'day, how's it going? It is Comics with your mate Failbait. Today looking at Uncanny X-Men, which is on sale on Comixology right now, up until around the 2nd of August. So there's plenty of X-Men comics in this library, but I'm going to recommend my favorite modern Uncanny X-Men stories that really helped establish the status quo of the X franchise through the 2000s. In the case of this first recommendation, it is Uncanny X-Men Divided We Stand by Ed Brubaker and Mike Joy with colors by Sonia Oback. It's for people who enjoy the idea of an X-Men team that is becoming more and more interested in survival than in superheroes, reeling from the events of, the extinction side of things due to House of M. It's also for people who really enjoy brilliant, realistic artwork with a bright sheen and some of the most beautiful representations of your favorite characters. Mike Choi and Sonia Oback is seriously one of my favorite art teams of all time, and the way they capture the emotions and landscapes really helps to sell the extensive changes that are about to come. They even managed to make Omega Red look like a top-tier husbando. Now, this is the prologue to the San Francisco era story, and it really helps establish what Cyclops and Emma Frost were thinking when they decided to move to the one place in the world that will still accept them, which is San Francisco. It's 67% off for this one story, and while it is a bit of a prologue, I really like it, mainly recommending it off the motivations of the lead character Cyclops and Emma, who will become huge parts of the next X-Men stories over the decade of stories they are in, as well as some really fantastic artwork. And it's, 67% off, can't go wrong. Now, while there are people who will always hate and fear them, this story has the purifiers, and they really, really make things difficult because it escalates from there, from the purifiers to the new Sisterhood of Evil Mutants, and even a new Hellfire Club. And it's all written by Matt Fraction and drawn by the fantastic Terry and Rachel Dodson, rotating with the very cool Greg Lanty, giving us some very, very nice looking figures there. So what they really did well here, I think, is really establish a huge cast. They use a lot of the X-Men, led by Cyclops and Emma, but bringing in people like Namor and Magneto. What I really liked, however, is their use of the Science Club, which is bringing in all the brightest minds of the X universe. And trust me, if you like snarky characters, that guy in white, Dr. Nemesis, is probably going to be your favorite revelation for the Uncanny X-Men during the San Francisco era. We also get Pixie serving as our eyes through this new world in San Francisco, feeling like the millennial version of Jubilee and Kitty Pryde before her. Her exuberance and excitement at being an X-Men shines through with the vibrancy brought by the art team. And as you can see, all these mutants in one place, inspired creative choices surrounding classic characters, and an art team that brings a sense of dynamic energy with the Dodsons, and a more photorealistic TV show style with Greg Land, makes it feel like a great combination of action and drama. The San Francisco era is great value for money. It's, Matt Fraction's story here with Terry and Rachel Dodson and Greg Land on sale for 65% off. This is the full collection here, which is, part one of the full collection. So you get about 20 issues for 65% off, and it's a great introduction to this San Francisco era. Really think it's worth buying, and it leads you, if you invest in the future of it, it really leads you into the next big events through things like Second Coming. But the next big status change that came after the events of Schism was spearheaded by Kieran Gillen and Carlos Pacheco. So while the Fraction San Francisco era was a huge cast, I feel like Gillen and Pacheco's approach is much more straightforward than the San Francisco era. It brings us the heavy hitters of the X-Men, Cyclops, Magneto, Storm, Colossus, Namor, and a whole bunch more who have now split up from the rest of Wolverine's X-Men school. And it brings us back to a more superhero style of storytelling, where the X-Men face huge threats. Some of them are even out of this world. It's a great examination of what happens after the big war, into how the X-Men bounce back from the crises and challenges they faced among themselves, especially with great interactions between Storm and Cyclops, challenging him and making him realize the consequences of his actions. So once again, Cyclops is a bit of a main character here. So if you are enjoying the saga of Cyclops and want to see how he develops, this is a great next piece because Kieran Gillen really characterizes the leader of the X-Men very well with a heavy burden. So for the purpose of recommending directly for this Uncanny X-Men, I would say to buy volumes 1 and 2. You can get the entire series for under $10 altogether, but I think that volumes 1 and 2 are probably the best parts of Kieran Gillen's story because it feels a lot more, like I said earlier, streamlined. Because one thing I didn't like about this run in the series is it felt interrupted a lot by the events such as Avengers vs. X-Men and didn't really have a chance to establish itself apart from the runs on either side of it. Because on the other side of this run was Brian Bendis' Uncanny X-Men. The mastermind behind the Avengers for over 10 years moving to the X-Men was huge at the time, and he was joined for this brave vision on Uncanny X-Men by a host of top-tier artists, including another returning X-Men creator, Chris Bachalo, as well as Fraser Irving. So it takes place after the huge Avengers vs. X-Men crossover, where the X-Men are now back to being really hated and feared, and the series grapples with the question of whether or not the X-Men, consisting of Cyclops, Emma Frost, Magneto, Magic, and a few other characters, are either terrorists or revolutionaries. The new characters like Tempest are cool, but Goldball isn't quite as interesting or as funny to have around. Thankfully, the focus remains firmly on Cyclops, Emma Frost, and Magneto, and explores the sort of political tensions between them. Especially interesting is how Magneto is slowly getting weaker or losing his powers, and how he has to deal with that. It also involves plenty more of the wider Marvel universe, including the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. So as well as seeing some of the more magical side through the character, Magic, Bachalo provides bombastic action for the X-Men on the surface, while Fraser Irving does a superb job of capturing the supernatural and demonic elements in later volumes. So if you are a Bendis fan, this is a great one to read as it further supports his fast-paced dialogue and expansive use of the Marvel Universe. Buying the first 2 volumes will serve as a great introduction to this Bendis era of X-Men, and the rest of the series is also on sale, so you could read the full thing. This one is more interesting to people who do enjoy that wider use of X-Men as part of the Marvel Universe, and are interested to see the sort of more rebellious, revolutionary side of Cyclops. So those are the 4 eras of the 2000s X-Men. Divided We Stand, the San Francisco era, the Carlos Pacheco Extinction era after Schism, and then the Uncanny X-Men after Avengers vs. X-Men. They're all on sale. You can find as much of it as you like on the Uncanny X-Men sale on Comixology, and there's something there for everyone. So thank you for watching, and I hope this long video has helped you decide where you want to start with the modern Uncanny X-Men. This has been Comics with your mate Failbait. Thanks for watching.